They're responding to all the suggestions that's coming from this House Assembly, all the policy papers, all the adjustment to the legislation and everything. Are we having that? Are we seeing that? Are we witnessing that?
Honourable Member, I thank you for the question. The truth is that we've been engaging the private sector over the last few years and almost all the things we're doing in the social space. The almost unnatural relationship between those whose business is capital, in the capital space, and those of us who have a more social orientation is well documented, and I don't think I have to try to articulate it here. But I would say that we actually enjoy a very good relationship with the private sector. And I say so because on all the major pieces of legislation that we have had, we've actually had consultations with members of the private sector. Now, there are some private sector entities, there's an association, and like any other association, there are individuals within the association who are less likely to follow what the association thinks may be the best way forward. But in relation to the business meetings we've had, we've met with the private sector when we were doing the disabilities legislation. We've met with the private sector associations when we were discussing the One Family project. I mean, we've met with them on many occasions, and the response has always been they've showed up, they've contributed to many of the meetings and so on. The situation in Bridgetown, not only in Bridgetown, the situation in Barbados, all of Barbados, Bridgetown, rural Barbados, private sector, public sector, is that our buildings are really not disabled friendly. Our streets are not even able-bodied friendly. A lot of these sidewalks for years in Bridgetown, for years, have been in the state where you could barely walk on them because of the way we set those grills, in some cases, beneath the level of the sidewalk. Some of the sidewalks have abrupt endings and so on, but I do know that the government made the decision for us to be able to fix all of those sidewalks in town and to make Bridgetown disabled friendly. This is going to take a while. The other thing is that in the legislation we spoke about, while we didn't get the quota in the legislation, we spoke about using the legislation, giving persons, I think, 3 years to be able to rectify a lot of their buildings, except in circumstances where those amendments to the buildings could not possibly be done. So I anticipate that you're going to see some changes in Bridgetown as well as all of Barbados eventually. I think in this case, the revolution, or probably better said evolution, is going to be gradual. And because these things come at an extreme cost, and I think it would be unreasonable for us to say that we've passed this legislation or that the country is gaining a more conscious appreciation for including persons with disabilities, and we do not recognize that these things come at significant cost. So we have now been in the process of hiring an auditor of sorts to be able to go around and assess all of the buildings, and we should have that finalized very soon. They're going to assess the public spaces, they're going to give us feedback on the private sector spaces so that we know these are the things that need to be done. And we weren't only talking about the physical disabilities, we're talking about putting in place signals for persons to see, for persons who are deaf or hard of hearing, and things for people to hear, for persons who are blind, and those things to make sure that we have the buildings ready. I have a view that voluntary compliance is always better than malicious compliance, and that takes conversation, it takes time. I look forward, maybe in another year from now, when we ask this question again, I suspect the question will be asked of me again in a year. Have we made progress given that we've passed the policy? Have we made progress given that we've passed the legislation? Have we made progress given that we've started a lot of these conversations? I would hope to be in a position to say that we've made some progress. Look, the other day we did a walk through town for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. We did a walk. And when we got to the road leading up to the roundabout, just after St. Ambrose School, I can't remember what that road is properly called, but the road is extremely rough. Extremely rough. And I think it's deliberately rough so that vehicles do not skid out in the corner. And as we walked the road, when we got to the top, the president of the Multiple Sclerosis Society, who was in a chair, said to me that by tonight she's going to be in extreme pain because of the roughness of the road. Now, most of us who were able-bodied didn't think of it. People in vehicles are grateful for it. But we build out to give one set of persons an advantage, which regrettably was a disadvantage to another group. And I just think when we plan out going forward, as opposed to waiting until after the fact, as we plan out our roads, we have to involve persons with disabilities. As we plan out our schools, persons with disabilities, or business persons with disabilities. We've also said to the National Disabilities Unit that I feel the time has come for them to step up what they do in terms of surveillance, in terms of implementing what the requirements of the bill. I mean, the truth is they only have 2 social workers, but I think it has to become a case where persons with disabilities need to know that they have an agency that they can go to that will make sure that their issues are heard and addressed. And I suspect with the way we've designed the social empowerment agency, that they will find in that social empowerment agency they have a voice. If you also look at the legislation, we have now put in place a tribunal in that social empowerment agency where persons could come forward and say, look, I feel like I'm being discriminated against. And the social empowerment agency, if they're not satisfied with that, they can then go to the High Court. But we've just put in place systems for persons to be able to express their dissatisfaction and for those things to be corrected. So I anticipate that it's not going to happen overnight, but I am thankful for the conversations that we have been having. I believe that in the next 3 years, because the legislation is clear, we're going to see a significant turnaround in a number of these things. And that perhaps when next we have this conversation, we can speak specifically to the buildings, the names of those buildings, to roads, the names of those roads, and so on.
I just wanted if you to go out there that I am suggesting anything called malicious complaints, which sound contradictory to me, but as against what is called social gradualism, not suggesting that at all. But I believe that sometimes the state has to be a little more assertive in making sure that action is taken. Sometimes gradualism means no more than conformity. And I'm just asking that we take some action and we monitor, and we also do everything that we can without being malicious in our actions. And, even evolutionary, sometimes you can't wait on evolutionary development. You have to apply yourself quickly, as you said, especially in a country where capitalists dominates the economy. And Bridgetown is a great example of that.
Just very quickly, I agree with everything that's said, but I believe the legislation does exactly what you're asking for. The legislation sets in place what it is that the country demands of Business Barbados. It puts in place a system for monitoring Business Barbados and other persons, the public service and private individuals and so on. And then it puts in place a system for us to come back and to report on the progress. So the legislation, to me, is perhaps the most powerful piece of social re-engineering that you have ever seen for persons with disabilities in this country. And that I anticipate we're going to reap the rewards of that legislation that this Parliament passed within the next year or two. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael East. Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Thank you, Chair. Very good morning to all. Minister Humphrey, I wish to congratulate you and your team for the excellent work you've done so far. In particular, the legislation that addresses the needs of people who are living with disabilities. I think that that was world class, and I congratulate you for being able to treat to those people as regular human beings and ones who deserve a place in this society without discrimination. I also wish to commend you for the One Family's approach, which I think is gonna really transform how we treat the people in this country. Many times there's heavy discrimination against people who can do no better than rely on the state for support. And there must be a balance between how we treat to them and how they themselves respond to the support that is given to them. That being said, I'd like to raise with you the whole issue of welfare support to young people. I am acutely aware of several single mothers in this country, a very young age, who have children, in some instances 3 and 4 children, without any paternal support, and have had to rely heavily on the state for welfare support. My own experience, having seen people in my office at the constituency level, and as recent as last Wednesday, there seems to be a disconnect between those persons who seek support and the persons who administer the support, because oftentimes I get the refrain that either they have 4 or 5 children, but the support does not meet their needs. Communication is a major challenge, and in some instances, I suppose because the officers are under tremendous pressure. My constituency is 12,000 people. So you multiply that by all the constituencies in St. Philip, and you start to understand the tremendous pressure that officers can undergo from people who are seeking welfare support. So oftentimes people can feel as though they're being dismissed. Oftentimes people can feel as though they are at the wrath of a person who have reached the limit. And I want to know if, one, there has been any attempt to try to provide a level of counseling for these young people who are constantly coming to the state for welfare support, and equally counseling for those officers who are bombarded with questions and demands for support.
Chief Welfare Officer.
Good morning. My name is Kim Bobwith. I am the Acting Chief Welfare Officer. And indeed, as you have eloquently put it, we are indeed overwhelmed by the amount of numbers that we're seeing as it relates to young persons who have several children, and the needs are varying for each and every one of them. It is our desire under the Social Empowerment Agency to have a transformation and empowerment directorate, which will then begin to seek to address some of these issues in a transformative way, where it is that we will be able to collate a lot of the information regarding some of these young persons to see what their needs are, and then be able to unfold better programming to assist some of these young persons, whether it is in parenting skills, whether it is returning back to school to gain the various skill sets, whether it is attending to working better with TVEC, our Barbados Vocational Training Board, in terms of getting those individual skills, as well as any counseling needs that will come up that they may need to be able to find that forum to work through. In addition, we will continue with the training as it relates to the officers who are overwhelmed, who are burnt out, and continue to build out through the new HR section that will cater to a lot in terms of the self-care, and working with those officers and workers that are on the ground consistently being bombarded with some of the work that they usually take home in order to address some of the needs of the individual. So going forward, there definitely would be a twofold approach in terms of addressing these issues.
Thanks for your answer. Being one who have lived my entire life having to go through the rigors of delivering customer service and having to put myself in a place where I understand people's feelings over mine in order that I may win their support, I wish to draw your attention to the old adage, whilst the grass is growing, the horse is starving. And many of these people, who I am sure perhaps have a big misunderstanding of the concept of welfare support. These people really and truly cannot afford to make ends meet. and at points in times they're taken off welfare support. During that period that they're off welfare support, they become an absolute burden to family, to society, to friends, to communities. And I'm wondering if anything can be done to do a deeper needs assessment before some of these people are taken off welfare. And what is the approach to that?
Again, one of the ways in which we're, in terms of moving forward under the Social Empowerment Agency, is to, with the advance of even more staff, we're able to critically assess all the areas. And in response to this particular question, reviews will be done in order to see where persons are at the points in time before any deleting from the various systems as it relates to the support. Again, with the empowerment aspect of it, as we work with the clients, we're able to see as they're moving forward where they are and how best we can offer various systems. The systems will not always be cash in, as it relates to, but other systems that can offer that support as clients transition through the system.
Thank you. My final question is, I believe I've been bearing the brunt of all of the questions coming from my constituency, because at 6 Roads, people are saying to me that they either can't reach the agent or that the office there at 6 Roads was undergoing some kind of repairs. I want to thank you all for the repairs there, but would wish for you not to let me, but for you yourself to update the people of the Republic as to when they can expect a reopening of the office at 6 Roads, and if there will be increased officers there to be able to deal with their issues.
J. Hubel, Sheriff Permanent Secretary. Minister, the work, as you have observed, and I must say that as another resident of the Republic of St. Philip, I have a keen interest in ensuring that the work is completed on a timely basis, and I can give you the assurance that the work will be completed by 31st of March. And Minister, I also wish to make the point in relation to the concerns that you have pertaining to young persons getting welfare support. The Social Empowerment Agency is going to be, the operations are going to be implemented in a way to ensure that there is a large degree of empowerment in its operations. Indeed, there's going to be a directorate which is called the Transformation and Empowerment Directorate that will be established specifically to empower vulnerable persons, particularly young people, as you're talking about. There's going to be career counseling, there's going to be counseling in terms of life skills and so on. Because we recognize, as the Minister would have indicated yesterday in his submissions, that we are moving away from the current disjointed approach to service delivery. A large part of the work of the entity is going to be on empowerment and seeking to transform the lives of the vulnerable. Thank you very much.
Just quickly too on that question, I feel like I need to clarify this, although it may be an unpopular opinion and position, but just to be sure, not everyone who applies for welfare is going to get it. Not everyone who makes the application to the welfare department is going to be successful once the assessment has been done. There is a part of the assessment that, of course, for persons who have disabilities and are otherwise unable to work and so on, it's almost automatic. But there's a part of the assessment that has to consider whether a person is capable of working, whether a person has actually been looking for work, and so on and so forth. So I think in addition to us being able to help the persons who come forward, I think we also have to make sure that persons understand that the welfare support was meant to assist persons who are not in a position, one, to help themselves, or who, because of some transient temporary dislocation, may need support to go on. The welfare was never meant to be, and should not be, and for the most part, people don't want it to be, a permanent position. And therefore, the empowerment focus that we now have in the ministry, I think, is going to be the essential difference between what currently exists and what it is that we are going to do going forward. But having said that, I've also said there were some policies in the welfare department that needed to change that I didn't understand. I do not like the review system where people fell off every 6 months. And we've put in place a position where now in the new entity going forward, that has to stop. If it is that a person has not been assessed, but you leave them on until you're able to assess them. But this idea of cutting off people every 6 months and taking 6 months to review them has to stop. That doesn't work. Or the arbitrary determination that a person can only get support for 2 children as opposed to 3 or 4, those things have to stop so that we can treat people with dignity, but it has to be balanced so that the people who deserve the welfare support the most will get it. But if everybody is coming for welfare, even in cases where I've had cases, and all of us in this room know it's true. We've had cases where perhaps we've sent people for work, or we know persons have gotten jobs. So now you are working. But you've gotten the job and still think that the welfare is an entitlement. But it doesn't work like that. If you've gotten a job and the job takes you out of a certain circumstance, perhaps you may get welfare support for a few months to allow you to adjust, but eventually that support has to go on to somebody else. The state, any state in the world operates with limited resources. So I've been very honest with my constituents. I've been very honest with the welfare department. This is how I truly feel. We have to be able to bring a balance so that people are treated with dignity, yes, but that nobody should be allowed to exploit the system in cases where the exploitation is clear. I also feel like sometimes we have to encourage our Barbadian public, the young people specifically, to get involved in training. There is a number of training programs being offered by this government, significant numbers of training programs. Some of those training programs offer persons an allowance, a subsistence allowance that allows them to be able to get this training and then move on to something else. So that is real empowerment. And at the end of the day, it is empowerment, I hope, that we are seeking. So yes, Honourable Minister, I agree with you entirely. When persons come for welfare and they deserve to be given the welfare support, they should get it. I do not like the review system that cuts off people, and we have been working to be able to fix that. But I must say to people as well that the welfare support system is meant for persons who are in need of that support. And not everybody who, on the basis of an assessment, is going to be found as deserving of the support at that level. You may get some food vouchers or you may get support for 5 months, but if your circumstances have changed, then you could anticipate something else. I also saw it with rent payments. You might put some person up for rent for a few months. You get allocations for a few months. You're in this house for 6 months or so on. You agree in the beginning to the 6 months. We've had cases, I saw one in the newspaper front page. These persons are being evicted by the government. The agreement was made that you come and you stay for a few months. Both persons at the time in the household were now working. Both persons in a position, when you look at the combined income, to pay the rent, but refusing to pay the rent because the government has said they were going to pay for a few months. So when the 6 months was ended, persons refused to then say that they're going to take up that responsibility. So there has to be a balance and there has to be a fairness, both to the state and the taxpayers, because it's not nobody's money but the taxpayers' money, to the taxpayers of Barbados, as well as to the persons who are seeking to get the support from the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Member for St. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. Over the years, we have seen the collaboration certainly between the Ministry of Education and your ministry. We have seen the interventions, certainly from the Child Care Board. In fact, I think many Barbadians still believe that the Child Care Board falls under the Ministry of Education because of the close, the way they work over the years. We've seen those interventions and we've seen the benefits of those interventions. There's also a close correlation between the Ministry of Health or health care and social care. And I want you to share with me or to shed some light the nature of that relationship between Ministry of Health and social care and some of the interventions that would have taken place. Obviously, you would have seen cases where there have been abandonment of elderly persons, there have been abandonment of disabled persons in the hospital, in our healthcare system, and I know that you've been working closely with them, even as you integrate many of your services closer with the Ministry of Health to ensure that healthcare and social care go hand in hand in this country. Just shed a little light on that relationship and that integration.
We'll let a few of the heads speak because each of the heads have a different experience with the Ministry of Health, but we have a very close relationship.
Good morning. My name is Roseanne Richards. I'm the director of the Child Care Board, and we have a very close working relationship with your ministry, Education, as well as the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And from the health and wellness perspective, we work very closely with the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, particularly the Medical Social Work Department and the Scan Clinic, where those persons who are abused or exposed to any physical or sexual abuse, they would be seen by the medical personnel at the hospital and referred to the Scan Clinic for further treatment. Based on that treatment, sometimes they're removed from within the abusive situation and they're brought into care. And all children who go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital who are in situations where their social circumstances are challenged, the Medical Social Work Department of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital would refer those children to the Child Care Board. On a regular basis, the social workers or the child care officers would attend case conferences at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital so that a better social plan or plan of action could be put in place in relation to the psychosocial support that would be offered to those children to ensure that their health as well as their social well-being would be treated to.
Nicole Daniel, Social Development Project Manager for the One Family Program. And yes, we also have been working closely with the Ministry of Education and with the Ministry of Health, as those two ministries are two of the key pillars under the program. Under the Ministry of Education, we definitely will work with them as it relates to remedial. We are connected with the National Task Force for Literacy with Dr. Henry because we've recognized the need for persons with remedial needs and with the various educational deficits that they have. As it relates to health, healthcare is obviously fundamental to lifting families out of poverty. This is one of the aspects, and we find that many of our vulnerable clients fall within the category of NCDs. We are working closely with the NCD Commission within this regard to ensure that we can be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive, but to ensure that persons, because they have limited funds, are able to still get the nutrients of various food items that they require. So the ministry, through the One Family Program, definitely will continue to engage with the Ministry of Health and Wellness as well as the Ministry of Education in an effort to see the success of our families in the program.
Good morning again. With the Welfare Department, we are always in collaboration with the Ministry of Education as it relates to the waiving of petty and textbooks fees for children returning back to school during the summer periods, basically, as well as with the Ministry of Health and Wellness in terms of working with the polyclinics, the psychiatric hospital, geriatric hospitals.
Being nurse, the National Disabilities Unit again, where we work in collaboration with the QEH. Many of our clients go there for dressing, therapy. And we also provide the QEs with wheelchairs so as many of their patients can be discharged when they need. And the Ministry of Health and Wellness has contacted us to see how we can work together as a team to help those persons with disabilities as well.
Colleen Walcott, Acting Director, National Assistance Board. So the Ministry of Health and Health Care Services is a very critical stakeholder in the provision of services for the older population. Actually, health and health systems are one of the priority areas in the national policy for aging for older persons. In terms of direct services, we do have a very, very close relationship with the geriatric hospital for those persons seeking institutional care, and therefore there's a lot of referrals and collaboration between the social workers. Our residential and transitional facilities are located in communities. Those beneficiaries also have healthcare needs, and therefore there's a coordination of services and intervention with the services of the Ministry of Health, the polyclinics, the community nurses. They play a very, very critical role in delivering services to our beneficiaries. Also in terms of our homeless population, many of whom have mental health challenges or mental health issues. The relationship and the treatment through the psychiatric hospital. And again, this all goes down to coordination of services through the social work department.
Lynn Armstrong, Acting Director, National Wellbeing and HIV Commission. I'll start with the Ministry of Education first. We have had fruitful relationships with the Ministry of Education. However, they no longer have a line item in their budget for HIV prevention. So that interaction has petered out over the years. However, with respect to HIV, we work closely with the HIV STI unit in the Ministry of Health. They are responsible for treatment and care. We are responsible for all other social aspects of the disease in terms of what affects persons living with HIV, whether it is their housing needs, their need for basic living, and we communicate with the Ministry of Health practically on a daily basis with respect to care and treatment and, as I said, social care issues.
Good morning, Chair. William Warner, Director, Bureau of Gender Affairs. In terms of the Ministry of Health, we have we work with the Ministry of Health, and we are having our men's annual health fair. And normally we request the STI testing, and they normally provide that service. In terms of the Ministry of Education, we are very fortunate to receive a lot of the information that we request to complete our reports. And I must say the Ministry of Education has been very supportive of our efforts.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. My next question pretty much flows from the first one in terms of the quality of care. You mentioned the geriatric hospital. We have a number of care providers here, in the public, also private. And over the years, we've heard stories. Some of those stories very concerning, certainly in our various homes. Various care providers. Tell me what measures are being put in place to ensure a quality of service, a quality of care, maintain that high quality of care right across both the public and private care providers.
I will begin and then the director can add. Just for clarity, neither the geriatric hospital or the private nursing homes fall under this ministry. Those are all under the Ministry of Health. So just for clarity on that point. The new legislation, though, that we propose for elderly persons, we've almost inserted, after consultations with the Ministry of Health, we've inserted ourselves in that process. So we now have etched out a role for the Social Empowerment Agency in relation to overlooking and overseeing those entities. So I just wanted to clarify that as it stands under legislation, it's really the Ministry of Health that manages and monitors both of those institutions. But I would like the Director of the National Assistance Board add.
So one of the primary goals of the National Assistance Board really is to promote aging in place and to negate really the need for institutional care. Our work is guided every year by improving our delivery of services and the quality of care. About 2 years back, we would have had a client satisfaction survey where with a reputable researcher from the University of West Indies, where we got feedback from clients as it relates to our services. There were some gaps and there were some deficits in terms of access and the needs, some of the needs that we were meeting. So at that time, we did not have a nurse, we did not have a physiotherapist. So we responded to those needs because obviously it's a growing population. It's no longer about coming into a home and doing activities of daily living. People have other needs and you need to treat to them holistically. So we would have had that review, independent review. We're also looking at the kind of, in terms of training, and really and truly what we are doing over time is to build out an integrated care system. And you know, the care system, there are various components. It's not only the services that you give, but also your training, your human resources, your funding, your coordination of services. So even as we go into, yes, we are doing some aspects of it. We're able to build it out more as we go into the new entity with more resources. And one of the things that we also be looking at is standards of care, as well as training and delivering person-centered care for our recipients. And therefore, that is why in both programs, the home care program as well as the elderly care program, a lot of emphasis will be placed on the training that we gave to our workers, not only to deliver care to our beneficiaries, but also to deliver care for themselves, because people, to get them to engage in self-care and really to communicate to them that they're a valued resource, and therefore people who are cared for and who feel that they're cared for and valued can then go out and give person-centered care and quality care.
Thank you. And thank you, Minister, for clearing up the fact that those two entities fall under the Ministry of Health. And I just wanted to make the point that I was referring to care in general. I know there are a number of persons within your ministry who care for the elderly, and it was the mentioning of the geriatric hospital that triggered my question, which brings me to my final question. The companionship program, a stroke of genius, if I would want to say that myself, and I've seen the benefits of it, certainly persons working within the communities, and at a time where we were still, you know, especially during COVID, you saw the benefits of having persons close by to assist family members and so on, to assist with the care. And this program, it drew on historical relationships within communities, where we know how we all grew up in our communities, where members of the family, members of the community took care of people within the community, and people within the family unit. My question is, going forward, and I'm sure that there are a number of persons who would want to know this. I have every confidence that the program will continue, but are there anything in the pipeline that takes into consideration in terms of providing this level of care? Any cultural developments or any recent research that would guide the development of any new programs similar in scope to the companionship program that we can look forward in coming out of this ministry? Or even an expansion of the existing program?
Thank you, Honourable Member. If you look at our estimates again, we have, there's a program, we deal with the National Assistance Board on one hand, and then we had Elder and Family Services, which we separated, and there's Elder Services. And the member for St. Thomas has done a number of wonderful initiatives, which she would probably be best able to articulate in relation to assisting elderly persons. I know we spoke of mentorship, bringing what I think is called a Granddaddy program, where we bring older men, particularly, to be able to interact with some younger children. Of course, after we've done the necessary vetting, which is also something I should say in relation to the one family. When we associate families with persons who are in vulnerable circumstances, there's a period and a process of vetting to make sure that, we put the right persons in place. And a number of other initiatives. I think mentorship is going to be a major part of it. But more importantly, I think we've had to sit back and review the companionship program and to ask ourselves if the version of the companionship program that we've put in place during COVID is necessarily the best version of that program as we go forward. And so we've asked the director of the National Assistance Board and the coordinator of the program, without any real direction from us, to just do a review of that exercise. And I anticipate that in the next few weeks, we're gonna have a detailed review of the companionship program, and we will make the necessary adjustments going forward. Like you, I think the companionship program has been met with tremendous support from Barbadians. As I said yesterday, there are a number of older people who are now in a position where they feel better for having someone come and speak to them. Just about a month ago, I was in my constituency with my personal assistant, and we visited one of our older residents, and she just said, the only thing she wanted was for someone to come and spend time with her during the day. That was all she wanted. She said, if I could just get someone come and spend a little time with me, I'd be very happy. And so we know that loneliness is associated in many cases with other age-associated illnesses. And if we can break the cycle of loneliness, then we have put ourselves in a better position where we reduce the impact on older persons. We also reduce the cost of the state and so on, which are supplementary benefits. But the main benefit is that if we're able to do that, then we are able to reduce the burden that many older people face alone. And again, the state is not going to be able to do everything. We need families to, as far as possible, to step up. And it's normally the case. I mean, where there's a family member, even where families are assisting, it's normally one person in the family carrying the weight for the whole family. We need all family members to step up. We lament, or we look back on with a certain nostalgia, the good old days where communities used to look out for people. We need communities to step up and to be able to offer that, because if we're going to be successful, as the director said, in relation to aging in place, it means that the mechanisms exist, some of them organic, not state-induced, but that the mechanisms that exist in the communities for people to be able to live a better life. So as the needs change, dementia, as we're doing through the government, residential care, as we're doing through the government, daycare, as we're about to do through the government, there are a number of things that we've added. The elder care program is only but one. We've added a number of things. I've listed some, but I still think there's space for communities and so on to step up.
Thank you, Minister. I didn't think I took the opportunity to congratulate you and your team for the job well done and for the good work that you've been doing. So I want to do that now, and also want to encourage you to continue the good work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Andrew. I see the opposition leader is clearing his throat, but we are coming to you next as scheduled. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I'm obliged to you, sir. And let me say to the Honourable Minister that it is not my purpose, nor does it derive from my office, to join in the self-congratulation that is transpiring between the Minister and the members of the government. My role is fundamentally different here, as always, and I intend to abide by the prescription of the office that I hold unless the public or any of us should forget, this exercise is about the spending of monies, vast amounts of monies that belong to the public. And let us keep it very simple. I've heard the philosophical treatises and so on, but I propose to ask some very simple questions, and I believe the answers to these simple questions are also simple answers. As I've said, this exercise is about the taxpayers' money, how the taxpayers' money has been spent, and how this government proposes over the next year to spend the money not belonging to the government, but belonging to the people of Barbados. Now, I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, not judicial deafness if they interrupt me, I can answer. Now, in that spirit and with that content and intent, I want to remind the Honourable Minister and the Honourable Member for St. Michael South that last year, during this exercise, we were told that a particular organization, and I will let it remain nameless for the time being, was paid $500,000 of the money belonging to the taxpayers of this country. And this year we have heard that that payment of $500,000 was in the nature of, and I quote, an experiment. Now, however I feel about it, I believe that the public is due some deeper explanation as to the payment of this experiment. It's a rather expensive experiment, paid to, for all intents and purposes, one individual. $500,000 last year, by way of an experiment. The public is entitled to know how much that entity, I will depart from the language now of individual, that entity is being paid this year, or how much it is proposed to pay to that entity this year, having been paid $500,000 last year as an experiment. Minister, please tell the public how much is proposed to be paid to this entity this year in pursuit of the similar work that he was supposed to have done last year. That's my very simple question. The answer is simple. No philosophy here. Simple numbers. $500,000 experiment last year. Tell the public how much is being paid to that entity this year, please.
Honourable Chair, I do not know that the Leader of the Opposition can tell me how I respond to a question. And therefore, I will respond to the question in a manner that I, Kurt Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, see fit. First thing. Second thing is, I also appreciate that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has finally come to the appreciation that these estimates are meant to explore numbers. And perhaps that realization came to him as an epiphany this morning, because it certainly has not been the experience in this well. Thirdly, the fact is that this organization to whom he keeps referring, if he wants me to be specific in my response, I would suggest that he be more specific in his question. And therefore, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition needs to tell me exactly to whom he's referring.
Since and this is to clarify, this is not my follow-up. The Honourable Minister has asked me to tell him, the Honourable Minister and the public, I speak to the public too, to identify, reluctant as I am always to call names in here, I will now identify the entity. I believe it is called the Alliance, some Alliance for the Homeless, and press further, I will now call the name of the individual. I can't do that. Your minister is forcing me to do it. How you getting this anyway? How you got in this? How you got in this? How you got in this?
Honourable Leader of the
How
Opposition.
did you get in this?
Honourable Leader of the
I'm entitled
Opposition,
to ask
you have
questions if
to
you have
address
questions,
the
ask them.
chair. You have to address
Keep
the
him
chair.
quiet.
And
Keep
if
him
I
quiet.
recall, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, we are giving you an opportunity for the minister to respond to a question which I believe and I recall was spoken to yesterday.
The minister has asked me to identify. It was spoken to yesterday. It was spoken to yesterday. And I asked the minister, did not ask the minister yesterday about how much is being paid this year. The minister said that yesterday the minister said that last year it was an experimental payment. That's the language of the Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister said that the payment last year was experimental. That is the minister's language. I am now asking the minister how much is proposed to be paid to the said individual. So don't tell me that you don't know who I'm talking about. It was said in here yesterday that an experimental payment was made to a particular organization, and I want to remind this chamber that last year it was the minister who named the person, and reluctant as I am to name the person, whatever anybody else thinks, the minister can name the person again, because I have some more questions following on this one. And I'm saying to this minister that I am referring now to the same person or entity to whom he referred last year as having received an experimental payment in the sum of the taxpayers' money of $500,000, $500,000. And if $500,000 sounds too bad, I will reduce it to $500,000. And I'm saying to this minister that this minister told the public of this country.
Chair, this has to be a question, with all due respect.
Yes, it is a question, and I'm entitled to finish it. My three minutes have not expired. I'm saying to this minister that it was said in here last year that the public spent $500,000 on an entity known as the Alliance for the Homeless, or something of the sort. All I'm asking this year, all I'm asking today, as I'm entitled to ask, how much of the taxpayers' money is going to be paid to that entity / or individual this year? That's all I'm asking. Chair. And I can't tell the Honourable Minister how to answer, but I can say that it's a simple question. And if the answer is complicated, I have the time. And I believe the chair has the time. And I believe this country has the time, because the country wants to hear now. Don't plead any technicalities with me.
Sir, at the end of the Honourable Chair.
And this has been extremely cordial so far.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable
Leader of the Opposition.
Chairman,
You have made a statement. Give the Honourable Minister the opportunity to respond.
Chair, thank you so kindly, because I believe that it must have been a lapse yesterday in the response, in listening to my response. I said, and I asked him to name it just to be sure we were referring to the same thing, because I answered this exact question yesterday. And I said, if he's referring to the Alliance to End Homelessness, we put aside $500,000 last year, and if he reviews the video, I said $500,000 again this year.
Thank you very much.
So you don't get to tell me thank you and cut me off, sir. Wrong fella. Honourable Chair, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition also went on to make it sound as if the use of the word experiment is a nasty phrase. Sir, we are in a government, and I believe, I've said to my staff, that I would like to see them incorporate new things, evaluate them. The ones that work, we will keep. The ones that don't work, we will not keep. The Honourable Member also used the experience of the Scandinavian countries. I gave him a lesson in how it worked. That Scandinavian countries engage in what they call creative destruction, whereby things that work, they keep. The things that don't work, they do not keep. They experiment. He cannot want, on the one hand, praise Scandinavian countries for the same approach, then to use a political response to suggest that there's something wrong with it. We looked at it, sir. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition would appreciate that we had a situation with homelessness, that I had said at the time that we looked at different proposals, that it became clear that if the state was to take responsibility for doing it alone, that it could cost the state millions of dollars, as these things do, that there were 60 beds available at the Alliance to End Homelessness that were free during the day, that there were other associated issues for persons who are homeless, not the transient poor, those who find themselves homeless temporarily, because we house them, most of them, through the resilience unit. These are persons who have drug problems, people who have other issues. There were nurses brought on, doctors brought on, a whole series of care. The Honourable Leader would also remember, if he casts his mind back, that yesterday I also said that we put in place in the estimates some monies to audit the finances of the organization. While we've been receiving reports every single time, our reports are up to date. Our visits to the agency have never proven anything to be off, and therefore there's no shame, there's nothing to hide. And that whether we choose to engage ourselves in cheap theatrics to entertain people is a matter for the Leader of the Opposition. But the facts will speak for themselves.
Let the facts speak. And let me assure this minister, who has gained something of a reputation for giving answers that are not hostile, and he can be assured that these questions are not intended to be hostile. I'm asking this for the sake of the people of Barbados whose taxes are being collected and they're entitled to know. And this is the follow-up question. No theatrics. This is the taxpayers' money that this government spends, and this government is giving $500,000 to one individual.
Can we have a follow-up question, Honourable Member?
The question comes now. No theatrics. The suffering people out there engaging in theatrics. No, I'm not. No, I am not.
Honourable Minister.
No, I am not.
Honourable Member. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What theatrics? What?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
People across this country suffering. You're accusing
Honourable
them of
Leader
theatrics
of
as well?
the Opposition.
Thank you very much,
For
sir.
the last time, proceed with the follow-up question.
Let me proceed. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you.
You're most kind. Now, this organization, and this is no personal, I've never even seen the man in my life, but the public must know. And this is not theatrical. This is reflecting the suffering. This is reflecting the misuse
Honourable Leader
and
of the
abuse
Opposition,
of public
you're
funds.
going over the same thing over and over again. Proceed with
Let
the
me ask
question, or I shall move on.
Let me ask the question. I'm obliged to you, sir. I am asking this minister if he is aware that the beneficiary of those funds distributed hampers within certain neighborhoods of St. Michael at certain homes during Christmas 2024. It was not the homeless. I said at certain homes. The minister can say yes, no, or I don't remember. But I'm asking this minister, who happens to be here now, and this is not a personal attack.
Is that the
I am
question,
asking
Honourable Member?
this minister to give account for public funds, and I'm asking this minister if he is aware that the said individual was distributing hampers at homes
Sir,
at Christmas within St. Michael. Thank you very much.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, what does this have to do
I was about
With
to
the
say
estimates. Well, let me answer
does
what it has
have
to do with the estimates. Let me
State
say
to the-
what it has
to
to
the-
do with
to
the
the-
estimates.
And the ministry.
Let the public
Honourable Leader
be
of the
reminded
Opposition.
that this entity, headed by this individual, received an experimental payment, and you can accuse me of repeating myself, but I have to give the sequence. Was the recipient the beneficiary of $500,000 last year experimentally? It is now said to this country that the same individual will receive another payment of $500,000. I am entitled to ask this minister if after receipt of those monies, whether this minister is aware that the said individual was distributing hampers not among the homeless for whom he received the money, but in homes in St. Michael. The answer is yes or no, or I don't know. That is what it has to do with. It has to do with the collection of public funds
Honourable Leader, the Honourable
being now
Chair,
distributed
Honourable
for a purpose
Chair.
that is not intended by the
Honorable
ministry.
Leader of the Opposition.
I hate to accuse the opposition leader of cheap theatre. This is
not cheap theatre.
I also,
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You can accuse me of
Please
anything.
allow the Honorable Minister to answer the question.
Answering. The Honourable Member has descended into a personal characterization, talking about theatre. What is theatre? When I'm asking,
the
taxpayers' money is being used for private political purposes. That is why I'm asking the question.
Honourable,
and that is why they're
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable Chair.
Could you allow the Honourable Minister to answer in silence?
Read your answer on the WhatsApp.
Honourable Chair.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question that was asked
you
of
will
me.
allow, hold a minute, Honourable Member. You wanted the bodies now coming. You would allow the Honourable Minister to answer the question. Yes. If you interrupt again,
Minister
we will have to take the appropriate
answering the
action, Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What the question going to do,
Yeah.
The Honourable Chair.
I want the truth.
Honourable Chair. In a brief, quite fleeting moment of clarity, the Leader of the Opposition began his comments by saying that he was going to look at the numbers and the estimates. The truth is, if anyone has descended to anything, it is the Honourable Leader of the Opposition into conjecture. I will not dignify whether, first of all, we gave no money to an individual. Funds were given to an association.
Name it.
The Alliance to End Homelessness, you named it, I named it yesterday. The Alliance to End Homelessness, we had this conversation yesterday.
By Mr. Who?
We had this conversation today. I don't know, I care about the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, but I fear at this rate he will not last the day. So Honourable Member and Leader of the Opposition, to answer your question.
I can last out.
To answer your question, as stray as it is.
As strange?
Stray from the facts. Straying from what is before this place.
The public wants to know if the man has been using
it's
public
not even
funds for private
to
purposes.
call it tangential.
Leader of the Opposition.
To call it tangential would be to be generous to the Leader of the Opposition. It's not even tangential.
Is he using public monies for private political purposes? Yes or no?
No.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Honourable Member, do not answer that question.
No, I couldn't possibly answer it. He knows I couldn't answer it.
Nothing to do with these estimates
I am
today.
asking.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, proceed with your next question.
Let me proceed, sir.
Proceed
all of them
your
coming.
next
All of
question.
them coming. Come. All of them coming. Read your WhatsApps and come. You can't come up with an answer by yourself. Read your WhatsApps and decide how to answer. You don't put on a suit now. You come here in a bodice every day giving trouble. Honourable Minister, I am now asserting, further to the answer that you gave, that in every likelihood, well, let me say it differently. We were told in here on Monday that a ministry is giving help, let me say help, in two forms. A minister sat there and said this, I can last out, don't worry. That honourable minister said that he gives financial assistance and sometimes he gives financial empowerment. You call that semantics. So this is a government now. People come to them and ask for financial assistance. They say, no, I think I will give you financial empowerment, whatever that means. In that same spirit, I am saying to this honourable minister that having given $500,000 to one man, unaudited thus far, and to return and give him another similar sum of $500,000, the first having been experimental. We don't know what is the nature of this one, that I am entitled to, use the word conjecture, I'm not conjecturing. I am entitled to say to this chamber and to this country that there is a possible commingling of private monies with public monies. And that if a man is given $500,000, and that if that same man is seen within the same financial year distributing hampers to those who have homes, that involves a possible commingling of public funds with private monies, and certainly an abuse of public funds. The minister says to us that that is conjecture. Whether it is conjecture or not, I am asking this minister if, in accordance with his duty of due diligence, whether he is aware that the same man who received the $500,000 for the homeless is now on an enterprise of distributing hampers at Christmas in certain districts of St. Michael. I'm not going to embarrass anybody and name the districts. Not going to do it yet, but if you push me, I'm going to do it. I am asking this minister if he is aware that the beneficiary of $500,000 has been distributing hampers in neighborhoods of St. Michael during Christmas 2024. Simple answer, simple question. Yes, no, or you don't know. I'm not telling you how to answer, but the public is entitled to an answer. The public is entitled to know whether a man who got $500,000 of taxpayers' money unaudited, the public is entitled to know whether the donor ministry is aware that he has been distributing hampers. Simple question, simple answer.
Next question.
I
I
suspect
have already ruled
Your
on this,
Honor,
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I've already ruled on this.
Yes, I am obliged to you. So it becomes a part of the record of this Parliament that that question is what, sir?
I have ruled on the question. Let us move on.
And what have you ruled, Your Honor?
Move on.
What have you ruled, Your Honor?
I have instructed the Honourable Member not to answer this question.
On what
It does
basis,
not, on the basis that it has nothing to do with this estimate.
Excellent. Good. Next question. Now, he should have given out some in Christchurch South. Yes. Put on a jacket, son. Your bodice does not look good. Now, I believe, I'm not acting, by the way, Minister. I'm not acting. Because when I come in here and ask questions...
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, proceed with your question.
I am not
Proceed
acting.
with your question, Honourable Leader of the
Thank you
Opposition.
very much. Soliloquy? You don't want to answer the question. But the public, this is not a private thing here, you know, the public is hearing. And the public is hearing a government declining to ask questions of this nature, but we accept the ruling. Now, not backing down. Let these questions go on the record. Honourable Minister and Member for St. Michael South. I believe are you a Deputy Chairman of the Barbados Labour Party?
Honourable, that
yes, he is. Okay. Simple question. All right.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, let me instruct you for the final time. We are dealing with the estimates of expenditure under the head 3035. You are directing question. You've been given the opportunity to speak to the Honourable Minister regarding those estimates. Do not bring other matters into this that does not fit under this estimate. Otherwise than that, opposition, I shall move on.
Thank you. And please don't get angry, sir.
I am not angry.
I would
like you, honorable Leader of the Opposition,
Minister
to
smiling.
operate in the spirit of this House.
Yes, the minister is smiling. I am smiling. Two of us want you to smile.
I'm smiling too.
Not yet.
But I will rule.
Well, do both, sir.
And I'm in charge of this chair, this honorable House at this time, and you will abide by my ruling, or
May I proceed, sir?
I've instructed you to do that several times before.
Thank you very much, sir.
Please do.
I'm obliged to you. Now, I asked the Honourable Minister a question. I will no longer ask, I will no longer interrogate on that particular issue. I will say to this minister that it is known that he is, if not senior in the government, he certainly is senior in the party. And that this honourable minister with that seniority in the party, for which I congratulate you, much deserved, I think. Since you're a far better minister than some of your colleagues, and you've demonstrated that over the last 2 days. He's smiling, I'm smiling, please smile, sir. And that being so senior in the party, this honourable minister knows who are the aspirants as candidates in the next election. And I'm saying to this honourable minister that it is known, stop me again, that it is known that the beneficiary of that $500,000 is a political aspirant for the general election, which is due whenever it is due, and that he has been using public funds gained from this ministry to further a private political campaign on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Honourable Member can say whether he agrees
Honourable
or
Leader of the
disagrees.
Opposition.
These are public funds.
Your time is up.
I beg your pardon, sir?
Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
For South Central, my time is up, sir. I have only asked 2 follow-up questions. I have a 3rd follow-up question, sir. Are you going to deprive me of the right to ask my 3rd follow-up question? Having ruled that the minister does not have to answer as to
Honourable Leader of the
a gentleman
Opposition.
who received $500,000 is not a candidate or an aspirant, and I can name the constituency as well.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central, sorry. Proceed.
Is your ruling, sir, is that I am not entitled to a 3rd question?
My
sir?
ruling is that we have moved on.
Oh, we have moved
After
on.
giving you several opportunities to answer,
But I
to
asked
ask
the
your
question, sir. I asked the question, and it is a part of the record. Have you overruled the 2nd question, sir? When I can quarrel, huh? You come here and decide that there are certain questions that y'all are not to answer.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
A $500,000 experiment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me also add my voice to this discussion, not the last one started by the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, but in respect of the works of the ministry, the good works of the ministry currently in the well.
And by the way, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt the Honourable Member.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition,
I am
you cannot interrupt the Honourable. The only interruption the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central can have is from this chair.
I beg your pardon,
not
sir.
from
I'm simply reserving my right to come
Honourable
back.
Leader of the Opposition. You are out of order.
That's your ruling, sir.
And allow the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central to proceed in silence.
And all I'm asking, will I be able to come back, or have you banned me for the entire session? I hope they say in your bodies.
Yes.
You go put on a suit.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As I was making the point, I want to, obviously, in recognition of the work being executed by the ministry in the well, to add my voice to this discussion in respect of the head we are currently discussing. Now, I want to, and I would like to focus more on the delivery of services, and this is where my first question is going. And I would like to inquire of the minister and or whoever else he delegates to answer the question. What are the key improvement areas we should expect from his ministry in respect to the application of technology? The reason why I'm phrasing the question the way I'm phrasing it is because I have constituents who from time to time would complain that they will be going to agencies for assistance. But I'm wondering if at all possible, the minister maybe has done so, given consideration to the application of technology, that is, allowing persons through maybe online platform or portal or any other method to apply for various social services in respect of welfare, in this case, which is an issue because oftentimes people may have to go into an office. Elderly care, for example, applications relating to persons who would want to have care for persons within their community. And for example, applications to what we refer to in Barbados as day nurseries. I think certainly that the application of technology could go a long way in improving and delivering services. And I therefore would like to ask the minister, what are some of the plans for the improvement of and the delivery of services using technology? That's my first question, sir.
Thank you for that question, Minister. The establishment of the Social Empowerment Agency will be based on the use of a modern management information system. This is going to be a case management system, a central repository of information, which will enable the more efficient...
One moment, Mr. P.S. Speak into the mic.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies, Chair. Yeah, as I was saying, it is a modern case management system based on a central repository of information on clients, which is going to ensure a faster processing of applications. And I'm going to ask Mr. Dorian Bess, one of our IT officers, to give a more detailed explanation of how that system will operate. Mr. Bess?
Hello, good morning. My name is Dorian Bess. I'm the Project Officer Management Information System for the One Family Program. As was mentioned by the PS, we are looking to implement a new system called the Poverty Reduction Utilizing Labor and Social Empowerment, or PULSE for short. This system, as the PS had also alluded to, will be like a central repository of all client information. So in the instances before where you had persons that would be keeping, let's say for instance, the welfare department keeping files on the client, or the National Disabilities Unit keeping files on the same very client, you will now have a repository or a central system that would have all the information for the clients in one place. So when persons come and present themselves to the new social empowerment agency, their information will be there that you can easily provision the services to the clients. So it's no longer a case where you have to be asking for your records at different places. There will be one central system that all persons that are coming to apply for benefits, they will be able to get the services provisioned to them through the different agents, through the different officers at the different agencies and the different satellite offices that will be set up. So it will make life a whole lot easier for both the clients of the system, of the different agencies, and also the officers to be able to provision these services. Additionally, the uses of technology, we are also looking to, in the near future, implement an online portal where persons can apply for benefits online, where they will no longer have to just present themselves to a bit different agency or wherever the case might be. They can actually just apply for those benefits online. It will be processed within the agencies, and then they will be notified whether they will be given the service or not. So we're looking to have these things streamlined and coming on board sometime in the near future.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I just wish to assure the Minister, because the question was asked yesterday in relation to, I think, if I may recall it correctly, the persons dropping off the system. I can assure the Honourable Chamber that that will be a thing of the past, because the system will be set up in such a way that you will actually be able to track the status of applications in the system. And generally speaking, that problem will be a thing of the past when the system comes fully on stream, when the entity is launched in early April. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps I should ask a follow-up or subsidiary question, however you phrase it. And what I would like to, I'm not sure if I missed it, and if I did, then I can be corrected. But I'm asking specifically if there will be opportunities for persons applying for services, including welfare, to go online, be it WhatsApp or on a line portal, whatever technology is employed to apply for assistance. I'm not sure if I missed it, but that's what I'm trying to understand. I hear about the case management system. I talk about moving it to online system, but I think for the benefit, especially those of us who have constituency clinics and others, and for the general public at large, it would be useful for us to perhaps clarify that or give us a better understanding. And I apologize if I missed it, but my question really was, will those persons or applicants be allowed to apply online for the various benefits, including welfare benefits?
Yeah, in a word, the answer is yes, but I should tell you that currently there are some applications that can already be done online, and perhaps it is perhaps work for us to do to ensure that the public is aware that these things exist, and that when we go forward, we make it very clear that it's possible. Currently, you can apply for welfare online. You can apply for welfare on your telephone. There's an online application form. The unfortunate reality is that for the social services sector, but predominantly throughout the government, but for the social services sector specifically, I think that in many cases, we were still using a lot of paper-based things over time, but that has been changing. One of the things that should have been mentioned in relation to Pulse is that we're now taking all of the old data from all these various entities, and we're necessarily digitizing and digitalizing a lot of the old information and the processes so that when he mentions case management, that is from cradle to grave. So that includes from the time you apply to being able to see the state of your application online, even on your phone, during the status, and then to have the outcome. So the system is very sophisticated in terms of how it was constructed, but very simple in terms of how it is in terms of people's interaction with it. It's very user-friendly. And yes, you can give your constituents the assurance that they will be able to apply for most services. Because some services you don't do online, but most services they should be able to apply for online.
Thank you for your clarity, Honourable Minister. Much needed, and I'm sure as you continue your public education campaign, that the public will also be even more familiar with the current application processes and the additional ones to come. I also want to take you to head sub-program 594, and you would have alluded to the Social Empowerment Agency. Can you share a little bit with us in respect of decentralization of services and the strategy behind the decentralization of services?
I will ask the Permanent Secretary to talk about the SEA and I mean, to speak also about the decentralization, but just what it is we're trying to achieve by this new amalgamated entity.
In a word, Minister, we are establishing a modern, agile 21st century organization that is going to make the provision of social services more efficient and more effective. The Social Empowerment Agency will be, the organizational structure of the agency will be based on the establishment of 4 directorates. One is social care support that will provide specific services in relation to persons with disabilities, the elderly, and children. It will deal with complex cases related to those 3 vulnerable groups. That directorate will also be responsible for the facilities in relation to children, as well as the elderly. So complex cases that cannot be dealt with in the other directorates will be dealt with in that particular directorate. We will also have a social care delivery directorate. And in that directorate, you will have many of the services that are currently offered by the welfare department, such as the provision of cash grants, the provision of national assistance grants, and also the provision of assistive devices to persons with disabilities. So in that directorate, the objective is to have a number of community satellite offices or client centers which will offer those services, basically non-complex cases in relation to the provision of services to vulnerable persons. In essence, what we are establishing on the basis of those satellite offices, and the intention is to have at least one satellite office in each parish. As we would have indicated earlier, we have already commenced the renovations to the St. Rose satellite office. If I could be more specific in terms of the actual location of those offices, starting from the north, Bentham's in St. Lucie. There's currently an office in St. Peter, but we'll be looking to establish a different office in that parish, since that the space in that office is relatively small, and we consider that it'd be prudent to have a larger office. Then in St. James, the Beach House complex. In St. Michael, we'll be having the office established in the National Disabilities Unit, as well as the current office in Country Road. In Christchurch, in Oistins, an office will be established in Southern Plaza. As I said, St. Philip, the welfare office in St. Rhodes. St. John, the David Thompson Polyclinic, there's an existing office there that is going to be renovated, and we're going to expand the space in that office. St. George, we'll be shortly be doing some renovations to the Glebe office. In St. Thomas, St. Andrew, and St. Joseph, we're actually going to be constructing new offices there in the new financial year. In St. Joseph, it will be at the Eric Holder Complex. In St. Andrew in Belle Plaine, and in St. Thomas, an area to the west of the existing St. Thomas Post Office. I think I've covered all of the parishes. Then we are going to have a very important directory. We have been speaking a lot of empowerment and transformation, and we're going to have a directorate which is specifically going to be established to provide, for example, career counseling, financial counseling, generally speaking, to empower individuals so that they would not have to rely on the existing services that are currently provided through the welfare department. Then we are going to have, the final directorate is going to be a shared services directorate, which is really going to be the support arm or the administrative arm of the Social Empowerment Agency that will provide a number of services. For example, there will be a financial unit, there's going to be a HR unit, there's going to be an IT unit, there's going to be a fleet management unit within that shared services directorate. So essentially what we are going to be having, and if I may speak a little in terms of the actual structure, there's going to be, we have made a proposal for an executive director. We have made a proposal for 3. Yeah. So, where was I? So essentially what we are going to be establishing is a modern, functional organization which is going to provide services more efficiently. The entity is going to be established from the 1st of April. I expect that the legislation to create a new entity will shortly be before Cabinet and laid in Parliament. So we have made substantial progress in terms of preparing an organization which we do believe will be an organization that is fit for purpose and will certainly be a benefit to the vulnerable persons out there and to the country as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very explanatory note on the Social Empowerment Agency. Based on what I'm hearing, I am absolutely delighted because what it tells us that we are, as a country, as a government, we're going in a very progressive direction where we are harnessing a lot of the social agencies and combining them into one agency that will allow us to facilitate a more effective delivery and execution of the mandate. So I really want to say congratulations to the ministry for that very important initiative on the sub-program 594. And my last question, Mr. Chairman, because oftentimes when we're in this parliament, there are always allegations of how we spend money and where we spend it. But in terms of for example, the welfare vote, which has increased over the years, recognizing that not only is this government a very caring one and would want to, of course, achieve a better quality of life for our people, what it also tells us is that we also have to use agencies from time to time, non-governmental organizations and others. And certainly the case with this ministry, you have, for example, the Barbados Council for the Disabled getting a beneficiary of these estimates as well. And therefore, any organization and governments over the years have continued to do this. They have, for as long as we know, we've had the structure of estimates in this country. You've always had heads, various heads, with allocations across both administrations relating to the execution of the government policy and our mandate. And therefore, if we have other agencies assisting us with the execution of poverty alleviation or helping people within the community, that ought to be applauded. So I really want to say once again, thanks to the ministry for the enormous work they've been doing, in particular with the disabled community. And I think their work has gone a long way, and I'm really happy to hear this morning that the Social Empowerment Agency and the execution and delivery of services will put us in a better position to respond to the many requests for assistance in the country. I'm obliged, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central. Honourable Member for St. James North. I would ask all honourable members, I will make you aware that we will just go another 20 minutes or so before we ask the honourable member to wrap up. I will take 2 more honourable members, and then I shall move on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister, I'm aware that the Law Reform Commission have held discussions with your ministry in terms of providing a legislative framework for what I call lasting or enduring powers of attorney. And to just give the context of it, under our law, we have powers of attorney, but that concept only applies where the person who has given the power of attorney has mental capacity. So for example, when or if that person then sustains dementia or Alzheimer's disease, the power of attorney is no longer applicable, and the person to whom the power of attorney has been given, or someone else close to that person then has to apply to court under Chapter 45 of the laws of Barbados to become the individual's receiver, and that's a very expensive exercise, much more expensive than a power of attorney. And I'm just providing you with the opportunity, Honourable Minister, to give the public of Barbados a report on the possibility of Barbados getting laws on enjoying or lasting power of attorney, similar perhaps to that in England, which passed such law through their parliament, I think about 3 or 4 years ago.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And I want to begin by thanking the Law Reform Commission, truthfully, because the Law Reform Commission has been one of the excellent initiatives of the government in relation to the support that they have provided to this ministry. We've received support on all of our major pieces of legislation to date from the Law Reform Commission. The conversation that we're having now on the power of attorney is one that kept coming up in different forms. Many persons have been asking for us to be able to do it. People who have a legal background, specifically, but people who did not understand the law in that way were also asking for something to allow them to be able to look after their elderly relatives. I think in Barbados, the power of attorney now ends where a person loses cognitive capacity. And the legislation that we have in draft is not completed. In fact, I spoke only to the chairman of the Law Reform Commission yesterday, and they now have been reviewing the original draft, and I think they now have a second draft for us to be able to look at. But that would allow us to have various options, whether the power of attorney is going to be durable, it's going to be lasting, whether the person can choose a variation of it. But what it does essentially is that it empowers persons to be able to look after their elderly relatives, whoever the principal may be, as their agent in a time when they need that support. I think that in combination with the elderly legislation in general will be two pieces of legislation that we will add to the social legislative framework that will really make a difference. I must also tell you, Honourable Member, that we've seen circumstances now where banks have been, in many ways, they say forced, in an effort to protect elderly persons from abuse, been refusing to give family members access to some of the funds that would be on people's accounts and so on. And then by choosing, I think persons need to know that they can do to have the power of attorney agreement sorted out, have that legal authorization. We need to put a lot of PR in it so people could plan their affairs so that when you get to the point, if you get to the point where you no longer have cognitive ability, but the person that you trust to take care of your affairs is so authorized so that when that happens, you are comfortable, the financial institutions are comfortable, and people then can go on to experience a better standard of living as a consequence. You know, as an MP, many people come to me with circumstances where they're saying, I cannot access my mother's pension, or I cannot access this. And when what the banks normally do now is that they will say, bring your mother. Once your mother or the father comes or the person comes and they're not able to say in a conscientious, clear way that this is the person they want to do it, the bank say no. So this just protects the agent, it protects the principal, it protects the institutions, and it makes a lot of sense to be one of the things that we add to our toolkit in terms of supporting the elderly. So again, I look forward to when we're able to do that. We have, I think I was hoping to lay, to be truthful, in March, as I was hoping to lay all the other pieces of legislation. While I believe we'll be in a position to lay the elderly bill sooner, that piece of legislation should also follow quickly thereafter.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of what you said in terms of limited time, I give way to other colleagues.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. James North. Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister and staff of the Ministry of People Empowerment, I would want to start at the outset by commending you for the efforts being made. And I do so not in an effort to triumph the work of the minister or indeed the government alone, but really to say that I have recognized the efforts being made. I have a very difficult constituency, one which I'm sure creates a lot of pain and headache for the welfare department and other agencies within the ministry. Many of my constituents certainly interface with officers in the ministry, and over time I have had cause in this place and certainly in my interaction with many of you to raise a number of concerns. In recent times, and I suspect it may be the leadership, but also, as the minister said, the common ground yesterday in response to the leader of the opposition that I think has been found, where everybody is working from the same hymn sheet, with an understanding that we can do better in terms of making vulnerable people not feel as vulnerable as in many cases they are. There was a time, and perhaps the leader of the opposition would do well to remember this, perhaps if he's had any interaction with people who are most vulnerable, to recognize that the welfare department was one of the places where ordinary people seeking assistance found it very difficult to enter, because it was almost like when you pass a security guard, and I gave this example many years ago, you were first asked to sanitize, and this was before COVID, as if just the presence of the individual would cause you to catch something. And then once you got past the security guard, all of your business was aired in the presence of everybody else who was in that space in the foyer. We have made significant strides because all of us have interfaced at one point or the other with people who have had those experiences to change that dynamic. There was a time as well, and the leader of the opposition would do well to listen to this, where there was a view by the party that he now leads that simply painting a building or calling it by a different name was reflecting a change in behavior, or that we were really helping people. And again, I am proud that this administration has, in a sense, listened to the people, listened to the issues, listened to the vulnerabilities, and have been able, over the course, certainly of the last 2 years, to be able to implement and introduce not just legislation, but changes to the behavior and the practices of officers. As I said, I know it's not an easy task, but as I said, I can see the efforts being made, and I encourage you to continue to stay on that trajectory where we never forget the reason why we are here, to serve the interests of the most vulnerable in this department. Now, St. Michael's Southeast has had the benefit of the Joris Dunner home, which is currently being utilized to accommodate persons while renovations are going on at other locations. My first question really relates to what are the plans for that facility. I don't see it mentioned in the explanatory notes of the estimates, but again, I am getting questions from my constituents asking when that particular facility might be returned for the benefit solely of the residents in that area. The truth is, like other areas, it is a very densely populated area around the Golden Rock community. And the ability to have a space where persons can actually go and recreate, and especially for persons who are active, it is a burning need within the community. As the minister would be aware, there's not a lot of other buildings or spaces available. And so that particular location offers a solution to a glaring problem in the community where we lack the access to space to be able to allow our aged population to be able to age gracefully with some activities. So I'd like to know the timelines that we're working with in relation to that facility and the plans in the future for the facility as it currently stands.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. I would ask the chairman of the National Assistance Board to speak. The director of the National Assistance Board. Yesterday, the director, I said acting because yesterday the deputy was in the well.
So we do understand, and we do get the calls also from the public, and particularly Colleen Walcott, Director, Acting National Assistance Board. So we understand the need, because we also get the calls, and there is a need for the center, given its strategic location since 2020. We closed for COVID, and then after that, for the last couple of years, we were using it as a transitional facility first for Vauxhall, and then for the displaced homeless shelter. I can say to you that we have signed, and we've gotten a commitment, and we have signed off with a philanthropic donor to renovate and to upgrade that entire facility. And the timeline that we're looking to start at, based on the process and everything, we're looking at around October, November this year, to give us some time to find alternative accommodation for the homeless men. But when that facility is upgraded, one of the things that persons with wheelchairs are excluded right now, because there's no wheelchair access in the pathway or even the bathrooms, but we're going to upgrade the facility to make it more, give a more better quality and environment. But yes, we've gotten that commitment and we've signed off on that donor letter.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure that we will look forward to those extensive renovations, particularly over the next few months. The other area that I don't see mentioned specifically, but I'm sure it's somewhere in the detail, which is the whole issue of assisted devices. What I encounter a lot are elderly people who they don't necessarily have a disability, but the ability to provide, for instance, commodes, shower chairs, to be able to facilitate easier daily living and dealing with their hygiene. Many of them obviously cannot afford a lot of the costs associated with these items. While some of these persons may be on welfare or receiving some kind of benefit, my simple question is, do we have a system for, or some kind of fund which could be made available to persons, especially persons who meet that criteria, where retrofitting of homes can be done, assistance with the commodes, the grip bars, the shower chairs, so that we can make it a bit easier for elderly people to remain in place. We already know that we have challenges in terms of space, and the Minister is well aware, and the Cabinet, that I am a firm believer that we have to find ways to keep people in place as much as we can, because elderly people often do not adjust easily to those transitions to other locations. And so where we can keep them, I think we have to have a policy of being able to provide the necessary assistance to the families and to the individuals to help them to retrofit their particular spaces. So is there mention in the estimates through the numbers that would point to those levels of assistance?
I will ask the Acting Director of the National Disabilities Unit to speak.
Yes, good morning again. Good afternoon again. We nurse in the National Disabilities Unit. We realized in Barbados, many persons are coming down with ailments, diabetes and so on, causing them to lose limbs and so on. And we at the NDU, we have received increased applications for all the items you mentioned just now. I can give you an idea of some of how we were able to help persons in the financial year 2024 to 2025. We were able to assist 27 clients with accessibility modifications to their homes through the construction of ramps and the provision of handrails. We gave out 72 wheelchairs. 20 persons with disabilities received prostheses. These were made up mainly of school children in need of back braces. And we had some older active clients. We had 46 walking aids were provided, 48 grab bars, 51 other types of bathroom aids made up of shower chairs, commodes, and so on. And we're hoping that going forward in the next financial year, we would receive even more resources that we'll be able to provide even more for persons, because we know there's a need because of the increased applications. So we hope to continue to help those disabled persons in need.
Yes. Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, I also know that we have had considering how the population is aging, there's some people who fall in that space. They're not quite disabled, but they need support. And so we've been reflecting on how best we can be able to do that, to offer support to those persons who are in need. I anticipate, I mean, I say it in different ways, but your question is a very practical way of saying it, you know? Our country is almost a super age country. Barbados is probably the oldest country in the Caribbean in terms of the average age of Barbadians. It is only going to the average age is only going to increase. With that increase, there are going to come other I shouldn't say comorbidities, but that's what's happening. Diabetes and losing limbs and so on and so forth. So the pressure is going to be on the system for us to be able to respond and to respond faster. And so, yes, we have to look at ways now to making people feel comfortable as they age, specifically as they age, because a person may not be disabled in the sense that they have both their limbs, but they have trouble getting up. And so as it stands with the current NDU assessment, you may not necessarily be the beneficiary of support because you wouldn't be considered properly disabled, but you need the help. And so we have to be able to look at that. I've also said so about our universal intake form. Somebody had asked about technology. So the way we assess now, there is a universal intake form, which basically asks you a number of questions about your circumstances. And then using the results of that, it makes a determination. I think we have to ask some different questions. We have to change the questions and put ourselves in a position where we could offer more support. So I think, on the one hand, those who can afford to start making those changes need to do it. But for your constituents, a large share of them are mine, there are many people who cannot afford to make those changes. I think NDU, the National Disabilities Unit, which will not exist anymore, it will be the Social Empowerment Agency. As part of its transformation, we have to be able to offer different services to people. So yes, you can look forward to different services. I anticipate over the year, as we build out the Empowerment Agency, we're gonna have to come for different finances to be able to do a lot of these new things. Because, you know, the public service is really good at doing what it does. What the public service is not good at is becoming curious about what it needs to do, the new things, the experimentation, if you will. But the point is that at the end of the day, we now have to be able to do a lot of new things. We have to offer new services, and over time, we will be in a position to say that we've done these additional things. For example, I mentioned the glasses yesterday. We're going to offer these different glasses. I think we have to do more than ramps and bathrooms. I think they're just things to make people comfortable. So the point is well taken.
Thank you, Minister, and again, thank you to the team. Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast. Honourable Minister, you may wrap up at this time.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to begin by thanking the staff in the Ministry of People Empowerment for the support over the 2 days that they've been in the well. I think Barbadians have seen that this staff, all of them that have spoken, many of them acting deputies stepping up, showing that the depth of what is available in this ministry is something for all of us in Barbados to be proud of, and tremendously proud of the way the ministry has conducted itself in the well, and as well as the way they've conducted themselves over the last year. Honourable Chair, the truth is that transformation is the order of the day. Transformation, innovation is the order of the day. We have to be able to better transform our services, to deliver to the people in a way that they feel the effect of those services, and to say, look, Barbados has had, in many cases, when it comes to our welfare support and other things, a difficult relationship with the department. I think we've been very honest. We've said these are the areas that we need to fix. I think we've also been very supportive of the staff and say we need to give the staff the support that they need to have. We've done a deep dive into most of our services. We've deconstructed and reconstructed almost every single agency in the ministry to be able to say that we now have an organization going forward that we think is going to be fit for purpose. And I think the public will come to see that the Social Empowerment Agency is the manifestation of years of effort, This goes back decades. It's the manifestation of years of effort and will make a significant transformation into their lives. We've also done a lot of legislation. You would have seen during the course of these estimates and during the time in the last year, we brought disability legislation, we brought legislation on children, we're bringing the legislation on the elderly, both pieces. The Social Empowerment Agency should be finalized this month, and I anticipate that we'll get the support of the entire House. as we go forward. But for me, it is now about implementation, implementation, implementation. We've done most of the heavy lifting. We've done the legislation, we've done the administrative changes. We're now building out a lot of facilities that never previously existed. This ministry is a ministry on the move, and Barbadians will come to appreciate that. In relation to our relationship with the NGO sector, I have expressed my position so many times that the best way to deliver a lot of these goods and services is through the NGO community. I strongly believe it, I philosophically believe it, and that is why if you look at our estimates in the last 2 years, 3 years, we've increased our support to almost every single NGO. A 40% increase to the NGOs in the disability space, and again, an increase this year for some of them. So the fact is that we work through the NGO sector to be able to best deliver goods and services. I should also say in closing that the idea that the government has engaged in anything in secret is a nonsense. I look back to a September, I think, in 2023, where we had a press conference to announce our relationship with the Alliance to End Homelessness and announce the funds, announce the need to do an audit the following year, which is this year. We said what we were going to do, and we've done it. There are no secrets here. And that has been the nature of this ministry. It's been the nature of the government. And I think Barbadians will appreciate that, we are doing all these things in their own interests. And I look forward to having the opportunity to continue to lead this ministry and these great men and women who sit beside me on behalf of the most vulnerable. Sir, with those few words, I ask that Head 35 stand part.
The question is that Head 35 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. All members against, you say no. You think the ayes have it. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do no report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do no report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
It's a good thing I don't sit as chair of committees. Perhaps it's a very good thing that I don't sit as chair of committees. Otherwise, I would have to invoke Standing Orders 38 to 40. The chairman of committees has reported progress as asked to leave and has reported give leave to sit again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until Monday, the 24th of February at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honorable chairman will be suspended until Monday, the 24th of February 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chairman stands suspended until Monday, the 24th of February 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.